this lesson, I'm going to teach you all the minor and major pentatonic shapes and how to link them and connect them across the entire fretboard. We're going to do this in the key of F sharp minor, and here we have a fretboard diagram containing all the patterns. I'm going to take you through them one by one. Just very quickly, the red blob means the root note, that's F sharp in this case. And then you have the E string positioned on the lowest part of the diagram, and you go E, A, D, G. So you just place your fingers where the blobs are. It's a very visual way of representing where the notes are.
Just a quick one. If you find all this music theory stuff a little bit confusing, I have a music theory for bass players course that goes through all of this pentatonic stuff, all the other scales, arpeggios, modes, everything you can possibly want on bass. And it shows you exactly how to make bass lines, fills and solos from that. So if you're interested in that, I'll put a link down below.
So this first shape would go like this if I'm using one finger per fret, 1, 4, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3. That would be what we might call shape 1 of the minor pentatonic scale. Shape 2, just shifting across. We now have fingers 2, 4, 1, 4, 1, 4, 1, 3. There are actually quite a few ways of learning this. This is just one way of learning them in these shapes, and that's what I'll show you today. We don't always have to use these fingers. In fact, when we improvise and make up bass lines, you probably won't. More on that later. Here's shape 3. Four. Five. You see the shape just repeats itself. Now, in terms of how you might learn this and memorize these shapes, it's important to know where all the notes are on the bass. This is F sharp. An octave pattern is very simple to find. You just go 2 frets across, 2 strings higher, and you have the same notes all over again. Wherever there is an F sharp, you'll get the same patterns off of that note. And there are easy ways of finding all the, for example, F sharps on the bass. I'll put a link here to an octave lesson that allows you to do that really quickly. One thing you could do is just live with that shape for one particular practice session. Just try and memorize that. There's the octave. It starts again until you reach the end. Then learn shape 2. Here I'm just playing from the lowest to the highest note and back down again. It's excellent doing this for your technique actually, because you don't always have to play one finger per fret, and I know many of my students have arthritis or smaller hands or whatever, so they can't do it. So you have to adapt to the technique that you can do, but if you can, it's a good thing to get that stretch going. I'm alternating my index and middle fingers each time here. And then you might mix them up a little bit. Go up this one, shift back, and then down this first shape. You also have an E and an A. F sharp minor is a really great key for rock because you've got the E in the F sharp. I don't have a PDF with tab for this particular lesson because this is one of those ones where we will both just make things up. I think that's really good, is to get creative as soon as you can with a concept. So you can use slides, vibrato, bends, play maybe a fragment of the pattern, perhaps the 2nd and 4th frets of the G and the D strings. That's musical It's giving my fingers a workout. I'm working on strength, stamina, all of that. And I'm not using a metronome or a drum beat, but if you do, you'll get extra practice for timing. This scale is really good for rock, but also funk. If you adapt your technique a little bit, perhaps add a few more 16th notes in, then you can get into that realm. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. This portion of the lesson is just to show you those shapes. So we have 5 shapes that go across the neck in this way. I'll introduce the backing track in a minute. But don't forget that there are patterns within patterns. You can go across one string. You've got that E string, so you can return to it. So whether you play the notes this way or this way, you're playing an F sharp minor pentatonic. And on bass, I think it's a very good idea, as soon as you can, to be able to move anywhere that you like with complete freedom. And that's just something to practice. Make sure you're holding the bass properly. Make sure you understand what alternate plucking is, where you're resting your thumb. All of this stuff matters. Then it's just a case of showing up to practice every day and getting faster. And if you don't know slides, practice those. We'll get more into that later as we go, but I'm going to play the backing track. First of all, playing root notes along to it. The chords are F sharp minor, A, B minor, back to F sharp minor. So I'll play the root notes first, and then I'll just play the pentatonic shape where we are and explain what I'm doing there. Where we start to get a little bit more freedom, because if you're working out, well, if you're figuring out bass lines that you already know, you'll hear this sort of these sounds, and then you'll be able to say to yourself, oh, that's a minor pentatonic, and it improves your ear. If you're looking to make up your own bass lines and jam and improvise, then it's even better. So F sharp is on the 2nd fret of the E string. So I was just using the notes within that first pattern. It just they all lie conveniently in that position. I didn't do any of that, actually. It's quite slow, 80 beats per minute. These are quarter notes. These are 8ths. Those are 16ths. I was actually sticking to 8ths, so. Then the 5th fret of the E string is where A is. And you could just run up the notes of the pentatonic right there. Then shift up 2 frets. This is the 7th fret of the E string. We're now on B. So this is the B minor chord. All of those notes fit. All of the chords belong to the same key. So any of the notes in this shape will work. You don't have to stick to the one you happen to be in. Then you've got F sharp. I went to the one that was here. 9th fret of the A string. And if you start to get a bit lost here in terms of what the name of the note is, that just goes down on your practice journal as something that you need to learn. You absolutely need to know the notes. We're on an A string, 12th fret, double dot, that's an A. So we can go sort of backwards down the alphabet, musical alphabet. G, F sharp. I'll put a link to another lesson where you can understand the notes, but anyhow, we have an F sharp here. And we have the shape there. It's exactly the same as that one starting here, but just here. And you have the notes on the E string as well, not to be forgotten. So this exercise is about following the roots and just playing the pattern or the shape that occurs where you are, and not really thinking too much beyond that. It's an exercise, I guess. We're not really creating music so much, because what fits to this backing track to my ear really is just doing this. Not much. But what if you want something like that? So I was on the A there. I know that the next notes in the pattern are just shifting across to fret 7. You've got 7, 9, 7, 9, 7, 9 actually. And I love the way that the bass maps out on a fretboard, because all of those notes are on the same fret. And it repeats itself. It's just simply those notes on frets 2 and 4, A, D, G. Now they're here. Now, if you're new to bass and you don't quite understand the layout, that will be confusing now. But with a bit of practice, these light bulbs will go off and you'll be able to connect it. I mean, it's to do with this. You've got an E here, 2nd fret, D string. And the next E is exactly always going to be the same place. You will just drop down a string and go across 6 frets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you get it. Same here. And you connect notes up that way. If you want to play with a little bit more freedom and be a bit less prescriptive than that, you can. So let's do that now. I'll just do some random things here. Classic overplaying there, but I was just doing what I wanted there. I was still just using pentatonic, but now it's the freedom to go wherever I want. I didn't move anywhere else from the shapes that I've given you to learn. Okay, so I'm not going to remember what I did, but I definitely did that. F sharp on the E string, 2nd fret, and there's that one on the 9th fret of the A string. So I did a slide to it. Bass playing just gets better the better your technique is, the more you work on your technique. So I've got vibrato there, and I can think in my head that I want to do that, and I have the technique to do that. So you need to do that as well. You need to just work on technique, and don't worry too much about material. Make your own. F sharp, well, slide to it. Just go back and forwards and do that. So I did something like that, then I went to A, stuck to a root note thing for a while. Instead of going to the B that's 2 frets higher than the A, I went to the one an octave higher than that. And you can use those notes I explained before, the 7th and 9th frets. Hammer-ons this time. And a little chromatic movement to the B. The F sharp is round there, so I'll stay here. Something like that is just the first shape, up the octave again. And I happen to like that kind of technique on bass where you slide in and out of notes. There, you're really required to know the notes across one string. And that's what I showed you before, but this time I'm on the A string. I'm using my ear as well there. Honestly, you'll have to trust me a bit when I say that you just need to stick with this for a period of time before it clicks. So if you're thinking, how am I going to learn all those shapes? You're going to learn them by practicing every day. That's not rocket science. You knew that, but if you're finding it difficult to carve out the time, you need to find a way of doing it. Maybe not every day if you can't, but every day is obviously going to be better. You've got muscle memory that builds up. Your brain will remember the shapes, so just do as much as you can. What about major? Well, every minor scale has a major scale that is related to it. The headline really from that sentence is just that the scale is the same. So if I show you this is the F sharp minor pentatonic scale from before, and magically you just change the red blob, the root, to A, and now we have all the patterns of A major pentatonic. It's exactly the same as F sharp minor because it contains the same notes. Again, there's the theory course if you want to get into the why of that a bit more. But you don't need to learn anything different. I have a backing track now that will force your ear into hearing this. So I'm going to play the same shapes, but now we have a much more chilled, same tempo major track. That kind of thing. So following the kick drum, really no need to do much more than that. The chords are A major 7, F sharp minor 7, then I've got a D major 9, but basically a D chord, to an E sus2. This is all the chords going on in the background. For us bass players, you just need to know where the A is. F sharp, D, E. In my beginner's bass course, From Beginner to Bassist, I teach a major scale shape where you can jam and improvise around root notes of very common chord progressions. This is doing a very similar thing. There's the A, you can go to F sharp here, D 5th fret A string, E is 2 frets higher. And then what you can do is you can play around with those pentatonic shapes. Let's do what we did before, as in just play something maybe not so musical, but over the A. That shape would fit. Then we're in the F sharp minor chord. So that first pattern from the minor would now work. Then we've got D. We happen to be in the same place as where that A major pattern is, so why don't we just stick to that. E. Exactly those same notes from the minor pattern, they're now here, okay? There's my slidey stuff I like doing. If you download these tracks, which they are for free, you just go to the website and you don't sign up, you just download them and you practice along with this. If you do that, start simple. So do start with the kick drum thing like this. Then introduce the pentatonic. Again, that is overplaying. If you're in a session, a producer would probably tell me not to play so much, but you know, you might want to every now and again put in a melodic fill. It reminds me of Pino Palladino's playing, where he just plays really solid bass lines that aren't too flashy, and then every now and again there's something melodic and he'll often use notes like this. So I think that's enough. I've got other pentatonic lessons. I've got the theory course if you want to go a bit further. I'll put the links below to those 2 tracks, which are, as I say, for free. And in return, if you wouldn't mind just subscribing to the channel if you're not already. Lots of people watch the channel and don't subscribe. That helps me to reach more bass players, and it increases the subscriber counts. More people buy my courses, and I can do these free lessons. That's how I do it, basically. So thanks very much for doing that. And if you have any questions whatsoever, leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next lesson.